So in this video, we're going to cover the settings section, which is one of the very first things that you want to do when signing up for Reporter Suite. Settings can be found at the bottom of the left menu titled Settings, and we're going to walk through each one of these. So the first setting is General. The General setting feeds not only your account information, but also some of the information that appears on invoices, and in the case of federal reporters, your AO reports. So the information contained here is fairly straightforward. From a tax filing standpoint, we're going to ask for your EIN, tax ID number, your employee ID number, if applicable, basic contact information, your district and duty station, which in this case will be fed into the top of the invoices that are generated. If you've got a company name and website address that you'd also like to appear on your invoices, you can do that as well. And also your general mailing address. Additional payment terms can also be found here. In this case, you'll notice the standardized federal payment terms that the AO recommends including on every invoice, but this is completely editable so that you can modify this verbiage based on your needs. If we go down into profile, you'll see this is where we can update our picture. In the future, when we have the ability to accept transcript request submissions from attorneys and firms, part of the information that they'll see is a very small instance of your photo. We plan on building this section out quite a bit to allow you to provide somewhat of a brief overview of your experience, any associations that you're involved with, credentials, things like that. Under invoicing templates, you'll notice that we've got state and freelance and proofreading and scoping. On the federal side, the AO has very specific fields that they want to see, so we opted not to allow the hiding or showing of AO defined fields because that would make them no longer valid from an administrative office standpoint. But in the case of state and freelance, proofreading and scoping, there's a lot more flexibility there. So what we can do here by clicking on either of these tabs is see what the invoice will look like once generated. So for instance, under state and freelance, I can specify which fields are visible on every invoice that I create. If, for instance, if transcriber's CSR or ID was not applicable to me, or my clients, I can deselect it and it will never be shown on an invoice when I go to create it. The same thing with proofreading and scoping. I'll go ahead and save this change. And now going forward, that particular field will not be visible on any state and freelance created invoice. We'll click on proofreading and scoping, and the same is the case here. I can specify exactly what's visible, what's hidden, go ahead and save the changes, and then when I create invoices going forward, those changes will be applicable. I'm going to go ahead and click on rates. The rates, we've got three tabs, federal, state and freelance, and then proofreading and scoping. The settings rates, which is what we're looking at now, serve as your kind of last line of defense as far as rates are concerned. And what I mean by that is when you create an invoice, you can always specify a custom rate or a custom rate item. However, if you don't specify, these are the rates that will be applicable when you go ahead and just add a page count, for instance. So on the federal side, we've got both civil and criminal, spanning both private and official for each one. State and freelance, we've got all of your standard rate types where you would just specify the value per page. And then when you create an invoice, unless you override it, for instance, your standard rate would be $4.25 per page. And then proofreading and scoping, the same thing. Proofreading and scoping has a number of rate categories, but again, when creating an invoice, you can always create a custom one if it's not here. You can even create a very abstract one, like accommodations or travel and dining if for instance, that was expensible, those types of things. But we wanted to incorporate the settings of global rates so that you're not having to enter rates each time for things that you're consistently billing out for. So that's rates. Let's head into time and attendance. Time and attendance allows you to specify custom categories when entering a time or attendance entry, in addition to attendance cities. So if you've got an area that you cover that spans multiple cities, you shouldn't have to type in the city name each time. This allows you to specify them once here so that when you go ahead and log a time and attendance entry against that city, you can just simply select it from previously entered cities here. Same thing with time tracking categories. On the federal reporting side, Your AO categories will already be there. Those are fixed into the application. For everyone else, what you would want to do is simply create the categories that you know you're going to want to log time against. And then going forward, you'll never have to enter those categories or manually type those in again. The same is the case with expense categories. On the federal side, any AO related expense category and associated category code is built into the application. In this case, we've got some custom categories assigned. Same thing. You define the category once so that when you want to go and expense against it, you can simply select it rather than having to type it over again. Your payment settings, this is just going to allow you to connect your Reporter Suite account to your Stripe account. Now, your Stripe account is created right from within Reporter Suite at signup. We're going to have a separate video that covers that, but it's a very straightforward process. There's a single form that you fill out that asks your general contact information in addition to the checking account that you'd like your funds to be directly deposited into. In this case, this account already has their Stripe account set up, so we see the account ID from Stripe, in addition to just a little verbiage stating that, okay, we can now accept credit card payments directly from our invoices from within Reporter Suite. If we head to the billing section, you'll see that the account type for this particular user is federal. Depending on which one you selected when you signed up, you'll just see your account type status here, and then our general support information email. So that covers settings, and as mentioned at the beginning of the video, the settings are the very first thing you're going to want to do, especially the general settings and your rates, because those things are going to impact invoice creation, how those invoices are going to look, and a number of other things within the application itself. I'll head back to the dashboard. One other thing I wanted to mention is you can also get to settings by simply clicking on your name and hit settings. So that's it, covering settings. Thanks.